Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Jenna Wood, and I'm one of the dietitians here with the Giant Company. If you're new to our classes, welcome. If you're returning, of course, welcome back. Today, for our produce spotlight, which is just that, we highlight a particular produce item and talk all about it and make a recipe featuring that item. Today, we're talking about sweet potatoes, which I love sweet potatoes. I don't know, this kind of look like sweet potatoes to me, so I wore this colored sweatshirt. But I think they are just such a wonderful vegetable, and we're going to talk about ways to utilize them and, of course, their nutrition. But let us dive in. So, in terms of nutrition, definitely quite the nutritious item. So, sweet potatoes, and this is for one medium skin on, which is important. I would say for most potatoes, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, you do get about half of the fiber and many of those nutrients in the skin. So, keeping the skin on whenever possible, giving it a good scrub. I have a potato brush I always use, but keeping that skin on whenever possible and a medium potato. So, like a lot of the potatoes we had in our stores this week were what I'd consider a little bit larger. So slightly less than these large ones. A medium skin-on sweet potato contains about 100 calories, so not too bad there. 21 grams of carbs, and four of which are fiber. So again, we get a good boost of fiber from the flesh itself, but also from the skin. And 21 grams of carbs is kind of right in between that one carb count, two carb counts, if you are somebody who counts carbs. Really not very high in carbs, again, for a medium-sized potato. Over 100% of your daily value of vitamin A. So vitamin A or beta carotene is really what we see here in this little picture that I love. Beta carotene is considered a precursor to vitamin A. So once we consume that, our body converts it into vitamin A. So provitamin A is another way to call it, but over 100% of your daily value, which is amazing. Uh, it is also considered a fat soluble vitamin, so lots of benefits here. Now, it's because of that beautiful orangey color that we have there. So different types of sweet potatoes might have a little bit more or less depending on their color. So this is like a traditional sweet potato. It'll also have nearly 40% of your daily value of vitamin C, which I think a lot of times people get, hung up on, oh, citrus fruits have a lot of vitamin C, which is true for sure. But so do a lot of other fruits and vegetables, potatoes and sweet potatoes, especially. So almost 40%. And then a bunch of other vitamins, minerals, 440 milligrams of potassium, 45 milligrams of magnesium, and then small amounts of other nutrients we need like manganese, copper, and a bunch of B vitamins. So super nutritious food to include. And it's just a fun one to talk about this week with Thanksgiving right around the corner. Now, what about sweet potatoes versus yams? So I do actually have a poll question. I'm so proud. I made a poll question that I'm going to launch. So this is a true or false. Sweet potatoes and yams are the same vegetable. What do we think? Sorry, I'm checking my oven. What do we think? I'll let it go for a couple more seconds here. All right, I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to share the results. So for most of it, we were kind of split. 75% said false, 25% said true. So very close to that. So 3/4 of you are saying no, they are not the same. And you would be correct. So here you can see on the right-hand side the difference between an actual sweet potato and a yam. Keep going. So sweet potatoes, typically, you'll kind of see, will have tapered ends and are generally more slender than a regular potato. But again, there are some varieties, like this is a big potato, so it really kind of just depends on the variety that you're purchasing. But they're going to be a little bit more slender and have that kind of tinier end as opposed to like a russet, which is going to be pretty uniform. In the United States, most sweet potatoes are one of four colors. So you'll either have that rose-colored skin with the sweet orange flesh, which is what most of us are using this week. Pale copper tan skin with a white flesh, which I've seen before. Red skin with a dry white flesh, not as common. And then purple skin and flesh, which is very nutty in color. So, but it's purple all the way through. We do carry these. I saw it as most recently as this week. They're going to be a little bit thinner, but they are so beautiful. And truly, I think Shane has used them to make sweet potato pie. And they do typically take a little bit longer to cook than like the rose colored, but they are also considered a sweet potato. Now, one thing, excuse me, I didn't talk about is why do I have sweet potato written as like one word as opposed to sweet potato? So this was something I want to say back in, oh gosh, it's been decades now. The North Carolina Sweet Potato Commission, which a lot of my information comes from, that was what they decided the official spelling was. Because it's not the same variety, it's not the same family as a regular potato like a russet. So they wanted to really differentiate. So that is how they spell it. Certainly, you'll see both spellings still. Now, what about a yam? What is a yam? Sorry. I ate a lot of pecans before the class, which you'll see later. So yams are completely different food. They are often, they can be the same size and shape as some small potatoes, but truly they are much larger and can grow up to 5 feet in length and can weigh over 100 pounds. They are very starchy, very dry. And again, you'll see kind of the pictures here down at the bottom. They're going to be similar to other types of root vegetables, not sweet potatoes. And 95% of them are grown in West Africa. Now, why do you pick up a can and it'll say canned yams? It'll also say sweet potatoes somewhere on that can. But back decades ago now, there was a lot of confusion between regular potatoes, sweet potatoes. So it was just a word they started to use, even though there was already a vegetable with that name as well. But it wasn't something commonly consumed here. So you'll still see them used interchangeably, but technically a yam, it's not what you're using at Thanksgiving for sure. Yeah. Alrighty, we're going to shift gears a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about cooking sweet potatoes later on at the end, but I want to get into our recipe. So we are making a sheet pan fall harvest salad, which I think looks so beautiful. All of these wonderful colors. We're going to get into it. So for this recipe, we need two medium sweet potatoes. Again, they're going to be pretty big, depending on which ones you find. A can of chickpeas, rinsed and patted dry. Half of a red onion sliced. We're going to need some olive oil, apple cider vinegar, and maple syrup. A little Dijon mustard. We're going to have some kale, and we'll talk through the kale. Chopped walnuts. I'm allergic to walnuts, so I'm going to do pecans, which to me is just a perfect swap if you want to make it for this time of year. A little bit of goat cheese, and then some pomegranate seeds, which I truly love the color variety in this. Lots of great plant foods to try. So for this recipe, and it does earn 2 guiding stars, lots of steps here, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to roast in a sheet pan the sweet potatoes, the chickpeas, and the red onion for a while. So I do have some already roasting so that they'll be ready for us, but I'll walk you through that whole process too. Then while that's roasting in a bowl, we are going to combine the dressing ingredients for the kale to help massage that kale. It's going to be the oil, the vinegar, maple syrup, and mustard, and salt and pepper throughout as desired. There's going to be a ton of flavor. You probably won't need a lot of salt. Then we're going to combine everything and bake the kale for just a short amount of time and then top with all those beautiful ingredients. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to, let's see, turn on my other camera. Perfect. Okay. So what am I going to do? All right. I still have a couple minutes on my TV time version, but I am going to show you. So I do have a sheet pan here. Now, my oven, my little oven does not fit a full sheet pan, but for today's class, I'm going to show you. I really do love, it's a little too small for this one, but I love our like pop-up pieces of parchment. They fit perfectly in my little oven. So I have my parchment already ready to go here. And then we're just going to chop up our sweet potatoes. Let me move this so I can see all this. Okay, perfect. So I did already give my sweet potato a nice scrub. So rinsed it off, gave it a really nice scrub with my little potato brush. So I'm going to keep the skin on. You certainly can peel it. but that's another step I don't feel like doing. And we know all of the nutrition we're going to get from that skin. So what we're going to do is just cut off a teeny bit, just a small little part of the end, because we don't want to waste any. And this one's got a lot of little weird ends, so I'm going to cut that off too. So we want to cut this sweet potato into cubes. There's a bunch of ways you can do this, and I've seen a million of them online. This is how I'm going to do it. It says about an inch. So what I'm going to do is cut it into rings and then cut it into cubes. So I'm going to do about an inch and just kind of, it's a little bigger than an inch. It's fine. And whenever you're using a knife like this, of course, we want to have our fingers kind of like a claw so that the knife would not, you don't want your fingers like this, chop your little fingies. So have them kind of more like a claw or a C, and then just kind of cut down. My oven went off, so I do just want to check them. Woo! Steam! Lots of steam. Let me give them a little look. Okay. Looking good. Okay. We're going to leave that alone. So, we're going to finish cutting these up. And it really depends. There's a lot of other ways to do it. My sweet potato, it wasn't perfectly round, so it is pretty stable on the cutting board. But there are other ways, like if you wanted to cut it this way, now that there's a flat surface, and cut down this way, that's certainly fine too. But I like using the circles. All right. So then what we're going to do for each circle, I'm going to cut it into 3 sections like this, and then turn it and just cut it into little cubes like this. And certainly you can make them bigger, smaller, whatever size you want them to be. But that's about the size I want them to be. So you put them on my cutting board or on my sheet pan and just keep cutting. I love sweet potatoes. I think they are just such a perfect food. And I do have a question later about what your favorite way to eat them would be. Time. Now, for the sake of time today, I'm just going to cut this one, but you would want to cut up the 2, which I did already cut up 2 today. I do want to show you all of our other ingredients as well. So perfect. Now, if you wanted to use those purple sweet potatoes, you'd probably want to roast the potato cubes by themselves for probably at least 20 minutes and then add the rest of the ingredients for the first step because they take so much longer to cook. All right. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to cut that one sweet potato, but you're going to cut both, add them to your sheet pan here. Depending, I would recommend having them spread out as much as possible because you don't want them to steam, which you did see some steam come out. But you want them to roast so that they'll get a little brown. The more space you have in between the pieces, the more likely they are to roast versus steam. So I've got that here. Then we are going to chop up our red onion. So it calls for half of a red onion. I did already use the other half for the one that's in the oven right now. So it does not specify how you should slice it. Take the rest of this peel off. And of course, if you don't love red onion, you could leave this out. I am starting to like red onion more and more. So I am actually excited to have it in this recipe. So that's something like, even dietitians, we don't always like every vegetable, but you might start to, especially depending on the ways you use it. So I have the half here. So it's got a nice sturdy surface, and I'm going to chop off that tip, throw that away. Now, again, so many different ways you could make it into chunks that will be similar to the size of the potato. For the first batch, I just cut thin strips. So that's what I'm going to do again. The whole thing. All right. So then show you here onto my cutting board, onto my sheet pan. I'm just going to take this, kind of break them apart onto here. This red onion was not too strong. It's nice. If you like red onion but find it to be pretty strong, you can always take these little slices and soak them in some really cold water for like a couple minutes, and that'll help take away some of that sharpness if you'd like to. And I've done that before and it worked very nicely. All right, so sweet potatoes and red onions here. Then we're going to do a can of chickpeas. So I already rinsed and drained them. I also, so the reason they're in this little container is because I also, as I say that, the red onion is a little strong. Um, I did take a paper towel to this batch because the one in the oven right now, they were still a little wet, and I think that contributed to some of the steam. So I did take a paper towel and kind of just, you know, blot them dry as much as possible. I did also take some of the skins. You can always see like the little skins of the sweet potatoes. They're perfectly fine. They have fiber. However, they're not the prettiest. So I took some of them off. So we're just gonna spread this out. Again, the parchment does not fully fit this, but we're gonna spread that apart. And then you can do whatever you'd like. You can either, spray with a little bit of our avocado oil, which is my favorite, or it calls for about 2 tablespoons of just olive oil on the sheet pan. I'm just gonna drizzle very lightly. You don't want too much either because that'll also prevent it from really roasting. All right, so a little bit of salt, a little bit more. Then we're gonna do some black pepper. I also think paprika would be really nice here. Like if you wanted to add other spices, I would probably toss the chickpeas in that spice instead of putting it all over. I think that would be a nice addition. So you could do like onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, something, cumin, even cinnamon would probably be nice. Okay. Fresh pepper, got that. So then I'm just going to take my gloved hand. You could do it without a glove, but or you can use a spatula or something. So I'm just going to spread it around, make sure the oil is kind of covering all of the veggies. And again, try to spread out, especially the chickpeas and the sweet potato, just so they're really nicely, evenly placed so they have room to roast. If you have 2 sheet pans and want to use 2 sheet pans, that would also work really well. So I'm going to move this out of the way. This would go into a 425-degree oven for about 35 to 45 minutes. So you want the sweet potatoes to be a little tender, and preferably the chickpeas are going to be a little crisp. Let me check mine really quickly to see what I think. Oh, yeah. Chickpeas are crisp, sweet potatoes have a little brown on the edges. They're perfect. I opened the door just so they don't keep steaming in there. But we are going to start with our second ingredient. So as I am looking at this, I realize I think I'm gonna need a bigger bowl. So let's grab a bigger bowl. We need a big bowl. Uh, that is something I always mess up. I always underestimate the size of the bowl, the pan. So I'm glad I realized now. All right. So into this, we are going to make the dressing that goes on the kale to massage the kale. Because a lot of people will say, oh, I don't like kale. It's bitter. It's really rough, hard to chew, hard to digest. It can be, especially if you don't prep it properly. So what we are going to do is make a dressing to help massage the kale, because massaging the kale is going to break down some of that extra fiber and just make it much more palatable. So into this large bowl, yeah, I was going to use this bowl and this is not big enough. So into this bowl, we're going to add the dressing ingredients. So we need, I believe, 4 tablespoons of oil, any type of oil. I have the olive oil here. So I think the full recipe calls for 6 tablespoons. You use 2 to roast the veggies. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Then we are going to do 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. That's what I have here. You, pr you probably could do other vinegars, but I really think apple cider is the way to go with this one. Red wine might be fine. One, a little bit big, but I like things really vinegary, so I did a little more. Then we're going to do a tablespoon of maple syrup. I love maple syrup. Certainly you could do honey, you could do agave, you could do other sweeteners, but to me, maple syrup makes the most sense. Nice and fall. 1 tablespoon right in there. And then we're going to do 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. So I don't dirty another spoon. I'm just going to do almost all of this because there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. There we go. Beautiful. And there was a little oil left in that spoon, so the mustard kind of slid right out. Same with the maple syrup. Alrighty. In here, we're just going to give this a rinse. Not a rinse. We're going to give it a stir. It also calls for a little bit of pepper. And a little bit of salt, which I will say, if you want to, really watch the salt in this recipe, I would leave it off of the roasted veggies, but still keep it in here because that salt's going to help when we're massaging the kale. So I would add the salt to this part. So just touch of salt. Okay, so we're going to whisk this together. Beautiful. Smells good. Then, a kale here. So the recipe calls for the 12-ounce bag of the Nature's Promise kale, which is this one here. It is already washed and ready to eat, so I'm not washing it again. What it does say to do is still kind of look through and discard any like really big stems, which I'm gonna, when I pour it in, we'll see. I'm gonna pour this into here. Big bag. Again, this is what it looks like without the kale in it. All right. So in here, so you can already kind of see like this piece here, we're gonna want to kick out. This piece here, they kind of like show themselves to you. And as you start to massage, you're gonna feel it. And just start breaking apart some of the, leaves that are on those stems because we want to keep the leaves. Oh yeah, see there's some big pieces. And this is like called the rib. So you're just kind of peeling away some of this. Okay. They kind of all migrate to the bottom of the bag. So they're kind of at the top now that we poured it in. All right. Any like really big pieces, you just kind of want to start breaking apart. There's nothing wrong with the ribs. They're just obviously a little rougher to eat. Okay. Oh, yep. You're going to keep finding some. And if you see any leaves that don't look really great, I would discard them as well. Oh my goodness, there's more. Okay. Now, if you have little kids in the house, like this is something they can tear apart the leaves. They can, remove the skins of the chickpeas. There's always something, they can kind of help with. Okay. All right. I think we got most of the big pieces. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to start to massage the dressing into the kale. So I'm going to I have gloved hands because I don't like touching all the oil and stuff. So, and I have to be able to touch my laptop. So I have to be able to have clean hands. So I'm just going to kind of take my hand to the bottom and start bringing some of the dressing up on top. And throughout, you're still going to find some of those stems that you missed. Happens. All right. Take that apart. And you're going to just very, very gently start massaging. And you'll see, like, the bowl's pretty full. It's going to start to deflate a little bit because we're squeezing out some of that air that's in those leaves. I think I'm still find some. But just keep massaging gently. They keep showing themselves. So you just keep massaging. And you don't want to massage to the point that it's like mushy. That would not be good. We just want to make it nice a little tender because we are going to bake these for, a couple minutes. All right. I keep finding more. Okay. Get both hands in there. Smells so nice. So I gotta say, if you don't like kale this way, then yeah, you don't like kale. But massaged, it elevates the eating experience so much. Alrighty. I don't know if you can see, but it's deflated a little bit. Like there's not quite as much volume because we're making it nice and tender. We're adding all of the dressing on there. Oop, I lost it. Goodness, there's more. There's still more pieces. Okay, that's looking really good. I don't want to do any more because I think it'll start to break it down too much. Perfect. So yeah, look at how much is gone. All right, so now we are going to add the kale to the sheet pan. So I'm going to take this glove off so I can pick that sheet pan up. Okay. You know what? Debating how I'm putting this on my counter. I do have this little thing that like is good for putting hot things on the counter. So put that down. Yeah, man. So here you can see the sweet potatoes got a little browned. Chickpeas are nice and crisp. Perfect. So put that down here, and then I'm just going to add the kale and mine is cooled down a little bit. So I can kind of move all of this around. And then we're going to return this to the oven for about 3 to 5 minutes. I'm going to do that to both of these. It's actually a lot of kale. I might reserve some of that kale and eat it as a salad. All right. A lot of kale. Okay. Adding all of those. Perfect. All right. So back into the oven. 425 for about 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah. I think if you have a bigger sheet pan, it would look a lot nicer and be easier to spread. I digress. All right, we're getting close to time. So I am going to share the rest of the slides. Once this is finished, I'm going to take that out and just dress the rest of the salad. But let us go back to our slides really quickly. All right. So kale's in the oven with the rest of the vegetables. I am going to, let me see, spotlight quickly. There we go. Okay. So then we're going to top with the nuts, the cheese, and the pomegranate seeds. So tons of different ways to prep sweet potatoes, of course, and I have actually a second poll. I don't know who I am today. What is your favorite way to eat sweet potatoes? Is it roasted, mashed, sweet potato fries, in a casserole on Thanksgiving, with pecans and marshmallows and all that goodness, or a different way? So I'll have that up as I'm going through the different ways to prep it. And I do have 2 links at the bottom of this slide, which are a little bit more in depth about how to actually cut and do these shapes. But we have roast a whole sweet potato, certainly a great way to do that. I do love a good baked sweet potato. Roasted sweet potato cubes, which is what we're doing today. However, we're adding a ton of other stuff. You certainly can roast them by themselves. You can make the rounds or the wedges. So like I cut them into the round first. You can roast them like that, or you can cut them into wedges to almost make them a little bit like a fry. You can make your own homemade sweet potato puree, which is fantastic. We do also sell canned if you don't want to do that step. Very similar to like a pumpkin pie or a pumpkin puree. You really just scoop out the innards. And my favorite way to actually make a sweet potato, which is very similar eating experience to a baked potato or a baked sweet potato, is actually to make it in a pressure cooker or an Instant Pot. I just think the flavors with the pressure cooker method just really concentrate those sweet potato flavors. It's so delicious. So I've included a link here on how to do that, and the link at the bottom also talks about it. I'm going to share the results. I would say, yeah, most people like them roasted. It definitely, just enhances that natural sweetness. So if you like them roasted and you have an Instant Pot, I highly encourage you to go to that link and try it that way too. And it's just very easy. You don't have to turn on your oven. Mashed sweet potato fries, a lot of people like. I love them too. If there's like I don't love fries always, but if there's an upgrade and I'm feeling a fry, I do love a sweet potato fry. In a casserole, I do love sweet potato casserole on Thanksgiving. And then other. So people like them a bunch of other ways. So I'm gonna stop sharing that. Tons of ways to utilize sweet potatoes. This, I think, is a recipe actually on our website that I didn't see before today's class because I may have made that because that looks real good too. But in soups, in potato salad, we have a sweet potato salad recipe. I think it's with like blue cheese, which I love. Delicious. Added to green salads, which is kind of like what we're doing today, or pasta. Pureed and added to oatmeal. Phenomenal. Into pancake batter. We have two sweet potato pancake recipes that I found in muffins, scones, added to French toast batter. Stuff them either sweet or savory. I think I've done a stuffed sweet potato with chili stuffed into it. Delicious. So many great ways. I think we have a taco one. There's just so many ways you can make the rounds as slider buns. Again, just so like a gluten-free option, like just again, so many ways to use it instead of regular mashed potatoes on shepherd's pie. This adds just another flavor profile. So lots of fun ways. Tons of recipes on savory for sweet potatoes. Again, there's chili loaded. I've made those so good. I made this one last year, sausage and sweet potato frittata. Very good. And then I thought this looked so delicious. They're chicken meatballs that you make by just slicing up chicken sausage and rolling them. But this is with sweet potato and broccoli. I do think the roasted like salad we're making today would be really good with like a chicken sausage or meatball. So that'd be great. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing because the oven just went off and I do want to show you this. And then I know we're at time. So let me grab this out of our oven. I'm going to add this right here. Move all of this out of my way. So what we're going to do is add this to my little bowl here. So the kale did break down just a little bit more. It's really good. Get in here. So I think you can do this way by like roasting the kale for a couple minutes, or honestly, what I might do the next time I make this is just keep the kale massaged in the bowl and then top it with all of these vegetables and the beans and all that. Both both ways look and sound perfect. All right. Get all this in here. Ah, it looks so good. I'm so excited. This is my lunch. And again, something like a chicken meatball would be perfect with this. All right, let me move this out of the way so I don't burn myself, which I know will happen. So then in here, oh, it looks so nice. So we're going to add just a couple more ingredients. So I did already chop up my pecans. Again, you could do walnuts. You could do any hazelnuts would be amazing. So any nuts you like. 2/3 of a cup here. I'm just going to do part of it because I do have that other tray. So I'll do like half. Then we are going to do some pomegranate seeds. So I did have some left over. I had another pomegranate, so I did just open that up. So pomegranate seeds right on here, about half of it. Beautiful. And then it calls for some goat cheese. So this is our taste of inspirations. If you don't like goat cheese, feta would probably be a great sub. I think Parmesan would be like shaved Parmesan would be perfect too. But I love goat cheese, so I'm doing goat cheese. Okay. Oh, these are big crumbles. Okay. But I think the white, you could leave them off, obviously, if you want to keep this like vegan. You could leave it out. But I do think it kind of brings a pop of color too. Look at it, it looks so delicious. So this is our roasted sweet potato and kale salad. Just a perfect like fall harvest salad. So if you're looking for something different to make for Thanksgiving or just during this season, I think this is just so phenomenal. Additionally, you can make a little bit more of that dressing if you want to drizzle more on. It's a very light dressing, so I think that looks so, so great. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thanks. Take care.